This video includes clips from a presentation called Understanding Trauma.
So when my clients establish their goals, they write their goals down or they tell me their goals, they have not yet necessarily clued in that their goals have to do with trauma. Here are some samples of client goals. And of course, I keep it anonymous. You would not be able to figure out who said what, even if you saw a roster of my clients' names. My clients have written down, I want peace of mind when we finish this process. I want to love myself and those around me. I want to set myself free of my childhood memories. Wow. I want to stop being so angry at myself and angry at my family. I want to manage my anxiety and depression better. I want to deal with my estranged son. I want to either, reconnect or let go. I want to communicate better so that my husband and I aren't arguing so much. I want to overcome my sadness. I want to trust again. I want to stop feeling like a bad person and telling myself I'm a bad person. I want to be able to say no. I don't know whether any of those resonated with you, but just think about, did any of them kind of resonate with who you are right now, or perhaps in the past? Just going to click this off. So let's take a look at what trauma actually means. And I want you to consider that little piece that we started off with. Which one of those goals resonated with you? And if none of them did, then come up with your own. If you went to a therapeutic counseling session or you went to a psychologist, what would you say your goals are? It's one of the first questions that is asked. And I would say that 9 times out of 10, sometimes even more, it has to do with trauma is the root. So what is trauma? And we've got here some definitions. Whoops, here we go. Discover the trauma's meaning. That's a good place to start, right? So I want to differentiate trauma from stress because many people mix it up. I can't tell you how many people say to me, Patricia, I was traumatized, when actually they were experiencing some stress. So Anne Selye, the discoverer or researcher in Montreal years ago, started to research the whole concept of stress and distress. And he came up with the word of eustress. And eustress is considered good stress. We want some challenge and stretch in our lives. Otherwise, we're just kind of limp and useless and have no meaning to our life. So we want some challenge. That's really what stress is. It's considered pressure, stress, challenge. But if we get too much of stress, it becomes distress. And we're about ready to snap, crack, or break. When people refer to burnout, it's because they have had too much challenge, too much stress. Some people say, I burned out at work. That means that whatever was going on in the workplace, they were not able to either look after themselves nor negotiate with management to lessen the challenges and the stress and the deadlines, and therefore they burned out. I have had 3 experiences of burnout, and it's not a pleasant sight. So what is the difference between stress, distress, which is too much stress, and that concept of burnout? Here we go. This is the beginning of our discussion on trauma. Let's say a young man had an experience with a bear and he barely got away with his life. He ran, exhausted. But then it's many years later, and if he even thinks of the word bear, he starts to have the stress response, the fight, flight, or freeze response, just thinking about it. Or let's say he sees a teddy bear and he has this trigger. It's called a trigger. So when we are triggered and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense about the present moment, that is an indicator of trauma. So trauma is not the story of something that happened back then. It is the current imprint of the pain, the horror, and fear living inside people. That is what is trauma. It is the response of the brain, the nervous system, all of the nerves that go around us. The nerves have their own memory. Our muscular system has its own memory. He might have sleepless nights, that guy that had years ago the encounter with the bear. So whatever happened did not get closure. When I experienced burnout, I changed the situation. I did some self-care and I was back on track with living my life. So distress can become trauma if it is not dealt with. Think about people that have a car accident. Some of them are in a car accident, and then a week or so later, they're back on the road, they're doing fine. I have assisted 3 or 4 people actually who have trouble or refuse to get back in cars years later after a car accident. And that is the difference between distress and trauma. There's different kinds of categories of trauma. So my father, if he had got diagnosed, I am really sure he would have been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. This disorder needs to have a doctor medically say, this person is not functioning because of post-traumatic stress disorder. This person isn't functioning in a daily way. That is how severe the trauma is. So we can have a spectrum of trauma, the one encounter with the bear or something like facing death very closely. My dad had a number of incidents that he started to talk about when he was older. I did interviews with him, very subtle. He didn't know I was interviewing him. I wanted to understand why he was so angry as a father, why he was so aggressive, why he smacked his kids around, why he called me a stupid female. I wanted to understand what was going on in his history and his mind that he would do that. And now I understand that's generational trauma, which we'll take a look at in a minute. Now, adverse childhood trauma is what I experienced, what I just described there, as it can also be called generational trauma. Adverse childhood trauma is that, say, let's give this example of this little boy. He sees the bear and then doesn't have anybody to talk about it, to process it, to bring to calm the nervous system, the brain. He lives in fear of even thinking about bear. And then even as an adult, he is still traumatized by a bear, even the teddy bear. Now, in my story of childhood, if I was told I made a mistake, I heard, you're stupid. I had another childhood trauma of a nurse trying to give me an inoculation, a vaccine at school when I was 12. And I woke up at home. She couldn't find a vein. And apparently I just don't have good veins. But ever since that incident, I avoided getting vaccinations. I would just, even on TV, I would have a trigger. I would have a trigger back to that big, mean nurse stabbing me, and then me not willing to put up with the pain, unconsciously fainting and finding myself at home. So there's a lot of different triggers. Let's just do a quick piece around generational trauma. Of course, our Indigenous people are still experiencing generational trauma. How do kids make sense of what's going on around them? They make sense typically. This is typical, that there's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with me that they yell at me. There's something wrong with me that I'm being punished. There's something wrong with me. And that gets hardwired. Yeah. So I want to just talk quickly about secondary or vicarious trauma. If you have people, loved ones in your circle that have experienced some kind of event that's turned into trauma, do listen to them. That's one thing you can do. And we're going to talk a little very soon about what you can do for yourself and others. And listening is a really very precious commodity to give other people. At the same time, you want to watch how much you absorb and maybe have images that are horrid for you. So Barb Higgins did a TEDx talk about how she ended up holding trauma after reporting the Paul Bernardo case year after year after year. I think she reported it for nearly 12 years. And she started having flashbacks, nightmares, all kinds of physicality of pains in her body. And that was from reporting. So therapists have to be very careful, and loved ones careful that they don't absorb the pain and the discomfort, the distress that needs to be processed. And most professionals have ways of not absorbing the distress. And there is a term called post-traumatic growth, and that has been well studied, that those people that had events that ended up being absorbed as trauma, once they addressed it, processed it, healed it, they actually were what we would call more mature in their ability to manage their nervous system, manage their self-talk, and it was termed post-traumatic growth. Some people are pretty mentally healthy to start with that go into combat or go into dangerous situations or have an assault put on them, and they are somehow able to give it meaning. Giving meaning to our experience, our distressful, our horrendous experiences, when we give it meaning, usually leads to post-traumatic growth. So now, I just want to talk about beware of situations that infuse trauma. So if you are aware of them, you can help yourself and be aware for those people for whom you love. So there are some cues of emotional or physical danger, and there are cues of disruptive childhood events. I'm just going to back here. Cues of emotional or physical danger. So if you take a look at environments that you might go into, for obviously, if you're going to, the Calgary had their flood, and was it 2011? That was a cue of physical danger. When I drive, I have a small cue, a small little piece of my brain that says, I'm in danger. And one of the pieces that I've been doing to help my clients lately is I've been mapping their nervous system, and we list cues of emotional and physical danger. So lists of cues of emotional and physical danger that I often hear are certain people driving in traffic, certain animals, emails coming in, sometimes a boss. So they list their cues of emotional danger, and then later they can take a look at how they can better take care of themselves. Now, they're pretty straightforward. Cues of a disruptive childhood events has been well documented by Jean Elsley Clark in her book, Reparenting. And it's a little trickier than just cues that are simply so clear in the here and now of emotional danger. Like if somebody starts using the F word, F you, Patricia, I'm not feeling emotionally safe, right? Or if there's a flood, or if there's a fire, or if the plumbing stops working. But cues of childhood events that have disrupted my life as an adult. I mean, I was told when you're grown up, you're responsible for yourself. And I had a client a couple of weeks ago who got really frustrated and said to me, why do I keep acting like a child? And I said, exactly. So that's the main cue for you, the clue that you've had a disruptive childhood event. And that means that your needs for safety and connection were not met back in childhood. And you get a neural pathway that sets up this trigger. And it took me a long time to start to feel like an intelligent human being from the message, you are stupid. Also, if anybody expressed anger, I used to duck because my dad got angry. My whole system was ready to keep myself safe. I would duck or run. Those taken me years. I will tell you that therapeutic counseling has improved over the years, and we now have faster technology. Some of those goals that I shared with you at the beginning, typically clients have finished up with me in 7 to 8 sessions and saying, I got there. And we say, hallelujah, or we say, congratulations. So it is possible. It's the technology, the tools, the protocols have all been better researched and improved since when I started therapy 45 years ago, 45. Wow. So just notice when you don't feel like an adult, a part of you sounds like a little girl just wanting some attention, or you are collapsing and saying, oh, me, and feeling like a victim. And I don't have choices. Those moments when you have this sense, I don't have choice. I don't have control. I have no options. That was true when you were a child. And as adults, we have many options. There might be consequences to them that we don't like, but we have many options and we have many choices. And knowing your ACEs score will give you indicators. It's in the learning guide, a link to taking the 10 question. It only takes about 3 minutes to do 10 questions to establish your ACEs score, which stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences Score. All you need to do is Google that if you don't want to use the link in the learning guide. Yeah, ACEs, there we go. Now, I just want you to be aware of how trauma shows up, which again is like cues. Unaccountable thoughts. If somebody says you made a mistake, and in my head, I hear I'm stupid, that's an unaccountable thought. I actually have a person I worked with who hears in her head when her partner disagrees that she's not lovable and that partner's going to leave her. And so she sometimes leaves a partner before they leave her as a defense mechanism. So these unaccountable thoughts, like, where did that come from? I just disagreed with you. I didn't say I was going to separate from you. I said, I disagree with you. So watch your thoughts. Unaccountable emotions. It is healthy to cry. It is healthy to feel angry. It is healthy to feel fear. But when it doesn't connect with the reality, if I am crying my head off because some hair, which happens most mornings, too much hair comes out of my hairbrush, I know that that's got something to do with the past, not to do with right now. And actually, that happened once. So I'm brushing and my hair is coming out, and I was told I was ugly at one point, and that got triggered, and I needed to go back to the source and take a look at that. So unaccountable emotions. In my earlier years, when I was experiencing a lot of stress, basically being triggered, the trauma being triggered, I used to get a lot of rashes between my fingers, my elbows, behind my knees. I was sick a lot. I used to get strep throat, flus, irritated bowel syndrome attacks, cardiac arrhythmia attacks, a lot of illness. At 75 years of age, I am healthier than I was in my 30s. So lots of illness that doesn't make necessarily any sense. As the Vancouver physician, Dr. Bal Powa says, 75% of what we take to the doctor, we create by our own internal distress. And last but not least are unaccountable behaviors. And I will mention the Oscars here. Last night, I don't know if you watched the Oscars, but a very famous actor, Will Smith, attacked the comedian Rock. Oh gosh, what's his first name? Oh gosh, can somebody help me with that? Rock. Chris Rock. There, I got it. Chris Rock. Yes, right. And there's a whole nother story underneath that. Wasn't just what Chris Rock said. It triggered Will Smith. And it's like, wow, at the Oscars, this one man went up and slapped or punched the other right in the middle of the Oscars. So that unaccountable behavior has a whole big story behind it. And, you know, one of the reasons I ended up in therapy is I was an early childhood educator. I knew how to raise children. I had the books. I had the training. And one day I smacked and screamed at my daughter. I smacked and screamed at her. And then I heard my father saying, "See, you're no better parent than me." And I went, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I don't believe in this. And it was an unaccountable behavior that I should use punitive, aggressive, basically assault behavior on my own child. That drove me to therapy. And the nervous system takes the brunt. It goes on fire. It goes into alarm. And the alarm is setting on fire either high energy into this angry or flight state, or down, depressed, depleted state when we get triggered. And if we stay there for very long, then we start calling it anxiety. That's the high charge state. Or if we go down to the low, depressed, low energy, the give up place, we get stuck there, we're in trouble. We want to be able to move back into the centered state of flow and well-being. Those are all connected to trauma, these different states of being. But what can you do for yourself? Well, let's take a look. First step is to commit to yourself to do these activities with self-compassion and compassion for other people. Most people on the planet have some trauma. Remember, I think it was Gabor Mate saying there's two kinds of people, those who know they have trauma and those who don't. And as I said before, it's on a spectrum, all the way from a small distressing event all the way to something like serving in a horrid war or residential schools, which is horrid. We won't compare the pain, but the distressing events are on quite a spectrum. So regardless, we want to have compassion for ourselves and others. And I have clients sometimes saying to me, but my partner or my aunt or my friend has had much more pain in their life than me. And my response, I say the only pain you can deal with is your own, and that will make a better world. Because we can't fix other people. We can't heal other people. We can support them, but the client needs to do the work. I often say counseling doesn't work, the client does the work. So we want to start with compassion, a commitment to compassion. And it doesn't matter what the event that happened. We want to make sure that the nervous system gets attended to. This is avoiding developing trauma, is as soon as the distressing event happens to attend to it. So how do you attend to it? Well, you recognize and acknowledge. And there's two pieces to this. If you're having an event that just happened, I want you to recognize and acknowledge that this could turn into trauma if I don't attend to the distress. If I don't have a good cry, a boo-hoo, get the car fixed, ask for support and help. If I bottle it up, then at some point to say, I recognize and acknowledge. Remember a client that I had who for 10 years still was wearing black and had not sorted out her husband's property. And she was stuck in grief. She was stuck. She was traumatized in trauma because she had not dealt with the distressing event of her husband's death. Second piece is you want to develop your ability to notice. Start noticing your nervous system state and your self-talk. I have been offering people, and I have a deal on right now for $98 if you're interested, to map your nervous system so that you're better able to return to the centered state. And if you want, you can journal the end of your day, how you did, how much of the time did you spend in the charged, angry, flight, defending state? How much of your time of the day did you spend in the give up place? And how much time did you spend in the centered place? And what were the thought patterns that supported that? Number 3 is get comfortable with your body. Yeah, this is me and my friends out in the park doing Tai Chi. Our emotions, our distress live not only in our brain, and typically not here in the old brain of the survival brain, and all through the nervous system. So in order to heal, we want to better monitor and get comfortable with what's going on in our body. A lot of people with anxiety start to notice this agitated breath, and then they get afraid of it. And there's a wonderful saying that, who said it? Yes, I think it was Richard Schwartz. There's nothing inside of you that can hurt you or control you if you are not afraid of it. Most people that are experiencing depression and anxiety get afraid of that charged state or that very heavy state, and then that does not help. We want to befriend it and take care of it. It's like having a little child inside of you. There's a little child for every year that you've existed, and then a young adult. For every year I've existed, there's a part of me that learned something, experienced something, and some of those somethings haven't got addressed or seen or heard. And you want to increase the places and the experiences of emotional safety. If you don't have them, get some. If you already have them, increase it. Increase where you get supported so that you can be with yourself and have some support processing. And if you do have a health plan, please use it. Typically in North America, people spend thousands of dollars outside of them. Shopaholics, gambling, even the processing of going to the gym. It's a fairly good practice. However, they may not, the person who is very physically fit may not have looked at inside themselves. In the exploration of our internal selves is the key to having peace, is the key to loving oneself. You keep loving what's outside of you, that will eventually one day, or sometimes just in the moment, doesn't fill you up, and you have to go the outside world and fill yourself up again. So this is what therapy typically does, is it takes away the need for the outside to fill you up, because you know that you are perfect and whole just the way you are. And going outside to fill up is not necessary. It becomes a choice. Adverse childhood experiences require a little more expertise to explore and to calm than straightforward understanding what happened to me in a recent incident, a more recent incident. So anxiety, depression, avoidance, uncontrollable re-experiencing of flashbacks, plus interpersonal problems, negative self-talk, and emotional dysregulation. If you're feeling like you're having trouble containing, not stuffing, but containing your emotions, these are all often signals of childhood trauma. And knowing your ACEs score is a first step. I referred to that before. And PACEs. PACEs has evolved out of the research of ACEs. ACEs was a 10-year study with, I think, over 30,000 people. And more recently is PACEs, which has to do with, let's also include the positive effects. Some people had some positive supports in their childhood. I had a wonderful grandma that affirmed my ability. And some people, it's a neighbor, or it might be a big sister. Big sister, big brothers associations have proven that 1 year with a caring adult for a child minimizes many, many of the risk factors. Do self-exploration. And self-exploration can happen through simply sitting with yourself. You can journal. Journal your thoughts, your beliefs, your emotions, your reactions. And some of exploration can be done with friends. Some people have a good friend that almost is like a therapist, and they can reflect and notice what's going on for them, their thoughts, their body sensations. Typically now in therapy, we talk about where in your body is the fear. What's it look like? How big is it? How strong is it? What do you feel about it? How are connected? What is that fear doing to support you? Why is it there? Usually all parts of us are there to serve a need. And maybe that need is no longer there. Maybe it was needed when we were a child, and we're still in that groove or pattern. That's often what we explore. And research your trauma roots. I talked about interviewing my dad. If it's possible, some people are cut off from their family because it's just too toxic for them. And that's okay. If you do have an opportunity to affirm what's going on for you, it will help you settle into, yes, I can take care of myself now. I'm an adult. And yes, when I was a kid, I was the kid on the block that was bullied, or I was the kid on the block that was the poorest. I was that kid who doubted herself. And I went back and met with a neighbor when in my 40s. Actually, I went back and asked, were we really, I thought we were like really, really poor. Were we? And she said, oh, yes, we all did what we could to support your family. And it was very affirming for me, because I thought I was just playing victim when I had those thoughts. And focus on inner child work. There are many books that you can access to start this process. Also in the learning guide, I have provided a guided imagery that will do the same thing, meeting with those parts of you that did not get attended to when they should have. Parents did the very best they could this is the guided imagery. You'll see this if you go to the guided imagery that I put up on my YouTube channel. What to do for others. Here we go. Let's do this quickly. Help prevent trauma by helping process distress. And that is just, I'm here. I'm listening. Yeah, yeah, I'm listening. Nodding your head, open posture, breathing yourself so that you stay centered. Offer relaxation, let's breathe together. Interesting, I attend Sunday service at the Center for Spiritual Living, Calgary Center for Spiritual Living. And before she starts her talk, this is after some songs, after some announcements, before she starts her talk, she says, will you breathe with me? And we all take 3 deep breaths. And then we are all supposedly, we'll see, centered and connected with one another before she delivers her message. It's a beautiful process. Become gently curious. And so questions need to be gentle. Can you explain that a little bit more to me? Oh gosh, I bet you that was hard. Can you tell me more? Tell me more is one of the gentlest questions to ask. And you can share your own moments of trauma and how you overcame it, which provides people with hope. Hope. We need to stop stigmatizing mental health. I hope you appreciate some of the stories I've shared. When we share our stories as an offering of service, it can help other people take their first steps to healing. And if both of you are centered, both of you in the centered state, in connection, that is the time to problem solve, to work out what options might be, if there are any. And it might be as simple as going to an AA meeting, whatever it is. But first, we need to have our nervous system calm and our mind, our prefrontal cortex intact to have those conversations. And offering a hug might be helpful. But do check with people. Some people, that's a cue of danger. Do not approach people with a hug without knowing whether touch for them is a cue of safety, calm, and connectedness, or whether it's a cue of danger. And this is a famous little video that went viral one time. And check in with the person later. How are you really? We have gotten to habit of saying, how are you? And then the other person says, fine, thank you. And the conversation's over. How are you? I want to know really. And how do you know when you're getting there, when you've calmed down your distress and the trauma is being attended to? Well, you respond to situations rather than reacting. You're okay being alone, having alone time, alone with yourself. You have a relationship with yourself. And you're okay with others as well. You're not hiding away. And by the way, people that are in the give up, depressed, collapsed, hopeless state, it's very, very difficult for them to make connection and be with others. They feel so badly about themselves. It's really important, if you tend to go to that place, for you to have 3 phone numbers of 3 people that provide emotional safety for you, and pick it up. And if you don't have those 3 people, then have written down the phone number of the distress center in your community. With getting there, you see trauma. You can see the trauma. When you can see the trauma in your parents, your family, in other people, when you can see that they're living in trauma, you will not be as judgmental of yourself or of them. And you're able to set boundaries. You're able to say, no, that's not good for me. Because if I'm not looking after myself, I won't be able to look after you when it's a true emergency. It's important for me to take care of myself. So you set boundaries on the frivolous little requests that come your way. And you're okay with being misunderstood. Oh my goodness, last week I got 2, was from the same person, one person, but 2 very snarky comments on my YouTube channel. And I'm still pondering whether I will respond or whether I will just let it be. And I did feel a little bit of agitation, and I wondered whether it was bringing up, triggering my little message about I'm stupid. I'm still pondering that. You see, I'm noticing myself, noticing.